Welcome to the Live Fit podcast with your host, Glenn Johnson. Today you will learn techniques for permanent weight loss and improved overall health.
Yes, it is time once again for the Live Fit podcast. I'm your host, Glenn Johnson, and this is episode 32. Today I interviewed Jonathan Bailor. He is the author of the book, The Calorie Myth, How to Eat More, Exercise Less, Lose Weight, and Live Better. But first, I'd like to ask you a favor. The success of this show, of this podcast, relies on you, on the good people that listen to it. I'm not asking you to buy anything. I'm not asking for donations. But I am asking that you take 2 minutes of your day, just 2 minutes once. That's all it takes to go onto iTunes and leave a review or a rating, an honest rating, of what you think of this show on iTunes, because the ranking of the show is completely dependent on the number of downloads and of recent ratings and reviews. Now, many of you have already left ratings, reviews. Thank you. I appreciate it. I don't think you can again on iTunes, but if you have not, please log into livefitlean.com/iTunes, and that'll take you directly to my page on iTunes, or you can always access it through your own iTunes window or app on your smartphone. I also belong to Stitcher Radio, so some of you listen to it there. I would also appreciate a review there, as that also brings it higher up in the rankings of all the other shows in the health category. And health is a huge, huge category. It ranges from everything from what I do to sex and anything that is kind of remotely related to wellness at all. One more thing, I've been working on a new website design for Live Fit Lean, and it was all ready, and I went to launch it this weekend, and something happened on the server and it crashed, and I've had nothing but a blank page for 2 days. They're currently working on it, and I keep checking for updates, so by the time you hear this, I'm sure it'll be up and running just right. But I just want you to know I do have a second site called livefitonline.net, which has a lot of the same information, blogs, show notes, resources, and much more. Plus, you can contact me there and also find links to Stitcher and iTunes. All right, I think it's time to hear my interview with Jonathan Bailor. Thank you, everybody. I have on the line with me today Jonathan Bailor, and he is the author of The Calorie Myth. Hi, Jonathan.
Hey, how's it going today?
It's going really well. You know, I have to tell you, I started listening to your podcast probably 9-10 months ago or so, and I was really interested in the topic. What's the name of the podcast? The Smarter Science of Slim, is that correct?
Oh, goodness. Well, it's evolved. So it was originally the Smarter Science of Slim show. Then it became the Calorie Myth show. And now it's called the Sane show. So it's on version 3 of its name.
Okay. But it's still essentially the same show with your co-host. I'm sorry, I forget her name.
Carrie Brown. Yeah, it is the same show. Yes.
Okay. How many episodes are you up to now?
Oh, goodness. We've probably recorded over 400 episodes.
Holy cow. So I listened to probably 12 to 15 of those episodes and got an idea of what your philosophy is about as far as eating goes. But maybe you could tell my audience what the Smarter Science of Slim or the Calorie Myth is basically about.
My story dates back to when I was very, very young. I was a naturally thin person, so much so that I struggled to gain weight. I wanted to be like my big football player brother, so I read all the muscle magazines, and I even went so far as to become a personal trainer and was tracking all my calories using an Excel spreadsheet. I'm a really geeky guy, and I was eating about 6,000 calories per day in an effort to get bigger. And since I did all this research, or quote unquote research, back in the day, I also then became a personal trainer. This is how I paid my way through college. And that experience was really enlightening for me because my clients were not at all like me. They weren't 18 to 22. This was a while ago. They weren't 18 to 20-year-old males who were naturally thin and had really high testosterone levels. They were generally mothers or grandmothers who, while I'm eating 6,000 calories a day and can't get bigger, I'm telling them to eat 1,200 calories per day and to do way more cardiovascular exercise than I was doing, and they weren't getting smaller. So at that time, I did what is so common, and I said, oh my gosh, they must not be doing it correctly, or they must not be trying hard enough. But then as I dug deeper and deeper and deeper, I saw that no, the compliance was there. And then I actually realized that by that same logic, my failure to become Arnold Schwarzenegger was just because I wasn't eating enough calories. And maybe I should have been eating 12,000 calories per day instead of 6,000 calories per day. So this then caused me to retire from becoming a personal trainer, because I felt at a loss when my clients would come to me with tears in their eyes saying, Jonathan, I swear to God, I'm eating 1,200 calories per day. And the only impact is that I'm cold and tired and sad and depressed and have no sex drive. What are you doing to me? Right? Like I wasn't very effective at my job. So then I'm a very, like I said, geeky person by nature. I was raised by two college professor parents, and I spent a decade of my life as an engineer at Microsoft. So I love technical things. And I spent 10 plus years doing really rigorous academic research, just scouring primary research, journal articles, chatting with folks over top researchers all around the world, the Harvard Medical School, Johns Hopkins, UCLA, and uncovered this giant disconnect between what I was taught as a trainer and what I read in all the muscle magazines and all the weight loss magazines and all the popular books, and what the actual modern science of endocrinology and neurobiology and gastroenterology showed. And it started to explain to me how you can have Homo sapiens, right? We're all the same species. Yet some of us eat whatever we want and don't seem to get fat and don't seem to become diabetic. And some of us smell a cheesecake and pack on the pounds, right? It's kind of like the person who smokes for 60 years and doesn't get lung cancer. We're like, well, how does that work? Well, we're starting to understand how that works, not with smoking, but for obesity and things like that. So the show talks about that research, the results of it, and then a book came out the other end called The Calorie Myth.
What is the calorie myth itself? I mean, I think I understand that eating less and doing more is the myth. And without giving away the farm, what's the solution?
Oh, I'm happy to give away the farm. I've been giving away the farm for the past 12 years of my life. I've given away too much of the farm, actually. Trying to figure out how to recover some of the farm right now. So the calorie myth is not that calories are a myth. It's that if you ask 99% of the population what you should do to be healthy, it revolves around the concept of calories. Like why should you exercise? You should exercise because it burns calories. Why should you eat healthy? You should eat healthy because you eat fewer calories. Is something that is 300 calories healthier than something that has 400 calories? Oh, obviously, yes, because calories are bad and we need to eat fewer calories. Everything, we have this view of nutrition and exercise that is purely calorie centric for the vast, vast majority of people. And I would argue that is harmful, because it's not a calorie in and of itself is not good or bad. In fact, a calorie in and of itself is good, because if you don't eat any calories, you die of starvation. Right. What causes you to become sick or healthy is everything else. Let me give you two examples. Heroin doesn't have any calories in it. That doesn't mean it's good for you, right? Right. What makes spinach good for you? It's not because it has few calories in it. What makes spinach good for you is completely independent of the calories in it. But so in some ways, we've been told to focus on the one thing. Like, it's a unit of energy. It's not what determines how the system itself functions. Another analogy. For example, the amount of unleaded gasoline that you put in your car's gas tank doesn't determine how your car runs. It doesn't determine how well it runs. It might be able to determine how long it will run. It's the quality of fuel that you put in your car's gas tank that determines how well it runs. Premium gasoline is going to make your car behave differently than putting kerosene in your car's gas tank. But in our modern world of nutrition and exercise, it's just stuff you put in your car is stuff you put in your car. It's all the same. Whatever. It's just about energy. And that is so wrong. And it's making us sick and sad and diabetic.
Yeah, it's funny you use that gasoline analogy because I use that with clients also. We have a nutrition conversation, and I kind of say that the fuel that race cars use is different than the fuel that you put in your own car for the street. You can use a much cheaper, lower quality fuel for commuting as you would for a high performance Indy car. And so there's definitely a difference between qualities. And so many people do focus on the calories, and they'll eat a bag of Cheetos because that's what they want, and they're getting, 200 calories, whereas they could eat a whole mountain of spinach and get 200 calories, but they wouldn't enjoy it as much. So can you kind of break that down? What types of foods do you approve or bless, and which types are shunned by your philosophy, the sane philosophy? I'm sure Frito or Cheetos and all those other snack foods are on the no list, but can you kind of give me a little more detail?
During this research, I really wanted to focus on what are the key things that actually do matter and do impact the system itself. And without getting into the tomes and tomes of science, simplest way to describe this is the acronym SANE. So SANE is an acronym for the 4 factors that really determine how many calories you eat. It's not a moral issue. We have a part of our brain called our hypothalamus, which regulates energy balance. It's not that calories in versus calories out is this mythical thing. It exists, just like water in and water out and air in and air out matters, but you don't have to think pee more after you drink more. It just happens, right? Like we take these automatic functions, right? No other animal on the planet can even conceptualize what a calorie is, left to their own devices in their natural habitat. They seem to balance calories pretty well. How does that work? That's a separate conversation. But so right. What actually determines the efficacy of that system itself? What maintains the integrity of your brain, your hormones, and your gut, among other things? First is satiety. That's the S. That's how quickly a certain source of calories fills you up and how long it keeps you full. An example of something with low satiety would be Pringles. And Pringles doesn't try to cover that up. They tell you, once you pop, you can't stop. We are telling you, we are going to take your money to give you calories that will make you hungrier.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the whole point of light beer, is to give you calories that don't satisfy you. So we've got satiety. We've got the A in SANE, which is aggression. This is the hormonal impact that the source of calories has on your body. The N is nutrition, or how many essential vitamins, minerals, amino acids, fatty acids the substance provides relative to the amount of toxic and addictive and non-essential things like MSG, for example, and artificial sweeteners. And then the E is efficiency, or how easily your body can store that source of calories as body fat. So if that seems too complicated, we can take it even simpler and say that sane, high-quality sources of calories have 3 things in common. They're high in water, fiber, and protein. And things that are insane are dry, low in fiber, low in protein. And then, to top it off, it makes sense from an intuitive perspective, because what are the things that are highest in water, fiber, and protein? Well, they're the things you find directly in nature that everybody ate prior to the obesity epidemic. So doesn't it make sense that non-starchy vegetables, nutritious sources of protein, whole food fats, and lower sugar fruits are going to be the optimal source of fuel for humans?
Yeah, let me give you some specific questions. What do you think about oatmeal?
Oatmeal is relatively, so the thing to keep in mind with nutrition, and this is I think a really common source of confusion, is that eating is a zero-sum game. So for example, if you eat one thing, you're not eating another thing. So just saying in a vacuum, is oatmeal healthy or not? Well, first of all, we need to define what healthy is. But so if you're eating oatmeal instead of Frosted Flakes, then yes, oatmeal is going to provide you with more of what you need to live than Frosted Flakes. But if you're eating oatmeal instead of eating, let's say, non-starchy vegetables, then it would be the wrong trade-off to make. And what we see a lot of people in our culture doing is they eat protein and starch. Mm-hmm. And the starch is used to crowd out vegetables. So people are like, whole grains are so good for you. They're so good for you. Whole grains are more sane than refined grains, but one cigarette is better for you than 2 cigarettes. That that doesn't mean it's good for you. We have to speak relatively.
Okay, relatively speaking, as you were talking about sane, and then you narrowed it down to the 3: high water, high fiber, high protein, I realized that dried rolled oats are high in fiber only, but once they're cooked, they're high in water, but they're still not high in protein. So they would not be off the list, or is there just sort of the gray area with many of these foods, going back to your zero-sum game where you want to eat the best that you can, but there's no off-limits foods? Is that what you're saying?
The sane system is a spectrum, and what it says, there's no such thing as something that is off limits. I mean, you can eat whatever you want. It's just, you pick up one end of the stick, you pick up the other end of the stick. So again, you smoke cigarettes, it's fine. You're going to get lung cancer. So what we say, for example, oatmeal specifically, we, like you said, it's low in water. You add water. We still have to ask, is the food itself high in water? Eating a Snickers bar and drinking a glass of water doesn't make the Snickers bar better for you. Okay. So, I don't want to kind of game the system a little bit.
No, I'm just trying to break it down and not look for loopholes, but trying to get the parameters down. I understand about it being on a spectrum, but because I know people are going to ask me these things too, so I want to be able to answer the questions as well as, not quite as well as you, but as well as I can.
So the easiest way to describe it, and again from a high level, is that you've got 4 food groups you want to focus on. And the reason you want to focus on these is eating, for example, anything other than them, you're relatively making the wrong trade-off. So non-starchy vegetables are going to make up the vast majority of what you put in your mouth. These are vegetables you could eat raw. You don't have to eat them raw, but that's just a general rule of thumb. Potatoes and corn can't be eaten raw. They're starches. They're not vegetables. So non-starchy vegetables, nutrient-dense proteins. Nutrient-dense proteins are proteins often from animals, most often from animals, and from humanely raised animals. So wild-caught seafood, free-range chickens, grass-fed beef, things like that. Whole food fats. So again, whole food. So think whole nut, whole seed. Think things like avocados, coconut, chia seeds, macadamia nuts, eggs. Again, the whole food. And then lower sugar fruits. So fruits that are going to provide more of what you do need, vitamins and minerals, and less of what you don't need, sugar. So for example, berries and citrus are much higher in vitamins and minerals and much lower in sugar than things like bananas, apples, and grapes. So the question, again, like with oatmeal, is just, does oatmeal provide a decent amount of fiber? Yes. Calorie for calorie, does oatmeal even come close to non-starchy vegetables? Not at all in terms of fiber content.
Right. Okay. Now, as far as fats are concerned, I noticed you said whole food fats. I understand nuts, avocados, etc. Are you not a fan of olive oil or coconut oil or some of these other nut oils or seed oils?
It's a relativity question. Again, are these oils are they good sources of calories? Yes. But what is coconut oil but a coconut with a bunch of the fiber and water and protein processed out of it? So again, coconut oil is a fabulous oil to cook with, but would you be better served eating, if let's say you were to add 300 calories into your diet from coconut-related products, you would recommend you getting it from a coconut rather than coconut oil whenever possible.
Okay, I see. What would be an example of an ideal breakfast?
Depends on how much time you have, but if you got a little bit of time on your hands, it's the same basic formulation for all meals of the day. So lots of non-starchy vegetables. So you can imagine, for example, having a omelet with a wonderful amount of peppers and asparagus, mushrooms, throw some kale in there, some greens, scramble that up. So really think maybe eggs, a nutritious source of meat, and a bunch of vegetables. If you don't have as much time, pop out a high-quality blender, throw some spinach, some kale in there, maybe some strawberries, and maybe some egg white powder, maybe some low-sugar protein powder, such as a whey or a casein or a pea, rice, or hemp. Or you could even make a cereal, but instead of using a flour or an oatmeal, use something like a chia seed or a flax seed or a coconut meal to make a healthy, higher fat, lower starch and sugar cereal mix.
Very nice. If I remember right, you have some recipes on your website?
Oh, yes. There's dozens and dozens of recipes in the book, on the website. And the good news is that this isn't Jonathan's magic diet system. I just did a bunch of research, and what you'll find, for example, is the way a lot of diabetics eat is very sane. The way a lot of paleo people eat can be very sane. The way a lot of South Beach, it's really just saying, like, what are the common denominators and not attaching an ideology to it. But I mean, you can be a sane vegan, right? You would just say, what are the non-animal sources of nutrition that are highest in water, fiber, and protein? Nice.
And speaking of paleo, it sounds a lot like yours is pretty much identical to paleo. Now, I know there's different versions of it, but would you disagree?
There's many, many different versions of paleo. So what I would recommend to folks, so it depends on who you ask, but I like to sometimes think of sanity as taking the best of a vegan diet and the best of a paleo diet and putting them together. It's hard to say it matches up with paleo because, for example, paleo, things like honey, agave, potatoes, like our ancestors ate those. So that those are totally fine in a paleo template, but they would not be something recommended in a sane lifestyle. So remember, you got to ask kind of what's the underlying philosophy. With paleo, the underlying philosophy is letting our ancestral heritage guide us. With veganism, it's don't eat animal products. With sanity, it's more of an object, like it's a set of rules, and you just say what's highest. It gives me the most satiety, has the least negative hormonal impact, provides me with the most essential nutrition, and is least efficiently stored as body fat.
I see. Okay. I will also have a link or two to your website and your recipes and some of the other goodies that you have available on there. But I do want to ask you about physical activity. Now, I realize you used to be a personal trainer, and I also realize that you are saying that you don't have to eat less and you don't have to do more. But what should people be doing for exercise to sort of be optimal for ideal body composition?
I'm very happy that you specified for what? So for athletic performance, for ideal body composition, because the for matters a lot. And that's a lot of the confusion, right? The way you train to be a great triathlete is very different from the way you train to be a great golfer, which is very different from the way you train to be a good football player, which is very different to the way you train to have six-pack abs. Very different, right? So in terms of the general population that just wants to be fit and healthy and functional and rock their mission and play with their kids and then die in their sleep peacefully when they're 125, something like that.
Yeah.
There's really two things I'd recommend folks focus on. One is low impact, low intensity, restorative activities. Playing with your kids, yoga, tai chi, Pilates, walking, riding a bike. These just recreational, moving your body, standing, not sitting. That's great. That's not exercise. That's just being a person. And I totally think that's a great idea. Take 10,000 steps, take the stairs. That's why we have legs. Right. When it comes to exercise, if you want to get the most bang for your buck, and if you want to have the most hormonal change on your body, which is really where the long-term benefits of exercise come into play rather than trying to starve your body in a different way. The point of exercise is not to just rip calories out of your body. It's to heal your body. I would highly recommend doing low or no impact, very high intensity exercise. So think interval training on a stationary bike with the resistance cranked up, or very heavy, slow, and safe resistance training with your major muscle groups, legs, back, chest, etc.
Great. Well, I just went for a bike ride. I got back about a half hour ago. I have a hill right near me, so I just went powered up that hill as quick as I could and then enjoyed a coast down.
Excellent. You just do that a couple times, you'll be all set.
Oh, yeah. I love it. It's my favorite. I'm a personal trainer, too, so that's why I am familiar with training for what. Because so many people say, what's the best exercise? Well, okay, let's step back a few steps.
Well, and when they say that, I've certainly had that experience as well. If you want ingest, just tell them, what's the best outfit?
Ah, good one. Good one.
Totally depends on context, right?
Yeah, it sure does. Well, Jonathan, it's been a pleasure talking with you. Where can people find your book?
Hop over to bailorgroup.com. So BAILOR group.com. The reason I recommend that is because we've got a bunch of really exciting stuff coming out in the next couple months, and you'll learn how you can sign up to get free updates and a bunch of stuff in email because it's not quite ready. But if you go to bailorgroup.com, we will be sure to let you know as soon as it is.
Well, your website's pretty awesome. I was just there, and a great big picture of you walking around and talking, and a lot of other information. So I was quite impressed with that. So I definitely recommend people go to bailorgroup.com. And you have programs available as well?
We will. That's some of the upcoming stuff.
All right. Well, it sounds like you have a ton of things going on, and all for the goodness of mankind, right?
That's exactly right. Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, as our good friend Albert Einstein told us, is insane. So it's time to bring sanity back.
I like that. I like how you work that in there. Okay, Jonathan. Well, I really thank you for taking the time to speak with me, and I wish you the best of luck with the sanity, and hopefully lots of people become sane.
I love it. Well, thank you so much. Have a good one.
Thank you. You too. Well, that's it for the show. Thanks for listening. Please keep those reviews coming in iTunes and Stitcher Radio. You can subscribe, read the show notes, articles, and all about my weight loss programs at livefitlean.com. Once again, thanks for listening, and always remember to live fit.